Hello, hello. On today's podcast, I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Deanna Cooney. And I have to say, I've just gotten off the Zoom call with her, and what a conversation. We've had an absolute blast talking about all things from presence to breath work, to embodiment, to acting, to a whole heap of other stuff. So tune in. You are going to really get so much out of this. This woman is an absolute plethora of information and embodied authentic expression, which is something that I absolutely loved about the interview, was her real genuine, honest expression and experience around what it is to go from being a very bubbly people pleaser to a very grounded, authentic expression of yourself and everything in between. So enjoy, and I'll see you on the other side. Hello and welcome to the Enquiry Podcast. My name is Nerida Mills. I am your host, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you along for this episode. What we do in the Enquiry Podcast is really explore and inquire with experts in their field in regards to what it is that actually creates a human experience, and more importantly, what it is that we can use to influence the human experience for our own development, growth, and expansion. So welcome along. Let's dive in, and I hope you enjoy. It is my absolute pleasure to have Deanna Cooney here with me today. We're going to go on a deep dive into we don't know what yet, but we're very excited about it. So, Deanna, why don't you just take a minute and introduce yourself to everybody. We met at a PR event earlier in the year. So, you know, we got to know each other, you know, kind of networky style level. So I'm really excited to go much deeper with you today.
Oh, I can't wait. This is going to be good. I'm nervous and excited. You know what it's like when you're stepping into something, you're like, I don't know where this is going. Woo!
Life.
Right? Yeah, I love it. So, you know, you asked me earlier, just, you know, be prepared to kind of introduce yourself. And it's always a challenge for me because I have done a lot of things and I do a lot of things. I'm 51 years old. I'm the mother of like 2 young adults who are flying the nest. My life is about to change pretty significantly. I'm like relocating, a whole bunch of things are happening. I run my own business. I actually have a couple of businesses. I am a voiceover coach and trainer, so that has been going on for quite a long time, and I've been a voiceover artist and an actor and a presenter and a professional speaker for 30 years. So that's my kind of career-based background. I teach in that space, but I also work with business owners, senior management, executive level professionals on their communication skills. And we do both of those spaces are very much driven by body first methodologies for me. So I do a lot of performance kind of coaching, like helping people perform at the level that they want to perform at. And a lot of that comes from an inside out kind of approach. So I do a lot of nervous system work with people. I do a lot of like mental framing work with people, but then we also do a lot of body language, voice, speaking kind of stuff, from the perspective of how is that influencing how you show up and how is it influencing how other people are relating to you, whether it's as a performer or whether it's as a leader in some sort of leadership kind of space. Yeah. And, you know, there's a lot of other things that I could talk about as well that kind of lean into that body-based approach. Most of them come from the fact that I've been a performer for a long time, but I've also been an athlete for my entire life. So
I think it's so important. Like, you know, you've hit on a couple of topics that I think are hot topics at the moment in general, but definitely for my listeners, and the nervous system being one of them. Because, you know, I've been through my own healing journey over, you know, however long time. And one of the things that became really apparent to me was in my ability to heal. And then, you know, since that's kind of closed out, it's now in my ability to expand. And so it's not like the nervous system ever becomes not important, whether you know, whether you're healing from something or whether you want it to create something, you kind of need it to be where you want it to be. So can you speak into that a little bit for me? And just I'm quite curious as to how you landed on that.
Yeah, cool.
And also the difference that you see it makes for people.
All right, great. Those are 2 big questions, and I'm going to answer the first one first, and you might have to remind me
That's fine.
the second one, right? So nervous system stuff. Okay. As a performer, my job basically is to show up in a state that is appropriate for the environment, the role that I'm playing, the character, all of those kinds of bits and pieces. And in order to do that, I have to neutralize any of my own stuff that exists in my body, in my thinking, in my communication. And effectively what that means is identifying what nervous system state I'm currently in, neutralizing anything that isn't helpful and supportive and is going to move me forward in the direction that I want to move in, and then dialing in the bits that I do want. That's kind of like the body version of acting, right?
Yeah.
Who are you being right now? Who do you need to be? What do you need to neutralize? And how do you need to show up and all that kind of stuff, right? So learning how to do that as a performer taught me how to manage my nervous system. And as a performer, I was very lucky. I got to do a lot of work around breath and body. I just happened to find teachers that were interested in that kind of stuff. So I learned how to use my body to manage my nervous system really, really early on without giving it that name. I was just doing acting things.
Yeah. Just preparing to act.
I was just managing myself, preparing myself to act, getting on stage, keeping my shit under control on stage whilst staying in a performance mode and staying on my lines and staying present and very, very much engaged in the process, right? So you just learn to do that, particularly if you start in theatre and then move into more screen-based or voice-based kind of performances. Although as a voiceover artist, and I started voiceover work really early in my performance career, as a voiceover artist, breath and body are just the most important things. You can hear your breath and your nervous system state in your voice. Yeah. It's a massive part of what shifts tonality around. So if I needed to sound warm and friendly and I was anxious and stressed because I was nervous, that would come through and destroy the warmth that I was trying to express. So I had to learn how to manage myself in those kinds of environments as well. And for me, it was very much about what's the physiology that I'm experiencing at the moment, and how is my nervous system contributing to that, and what are the ways that I can interact with that to calm it down or dial it up or do whatever it is that I needed to do. And then as an athlete as well, you just have to manage your shit as an athlete. You have to do things scared and learn how to be uncomfortable and be scared and still take the actions anyway. Acting's very much like that too. And, combine all of that with the fact that I am an absolute fucking nerd about anatomy and physiology and brain stuff and neurology and neuromuscular pathways. And I have always wanted to know how things work. And the reason I want to know how things work is because I want to be really good at the things that I'm interested in doing. Yeah. And what I have found is, skills are everything, of course, right? You've got to have the skills to do things, but a skill set can be incredibly undermined by a dysregulated nervous system. And so anytime I want to be good at something, the first thing I do is work out what's my nervous system doing here, and is it going to interfere with my ability to learn and then implement what I learn? And if it is, that's the first thing that I deal with. And that's just kind of carried through to, it's become a really big foundational part of everything that I do personally and working with people.
I can imagine so, because I know, even reflecting on my own life, if there's a disturbance in the force, I call it, which is an emotional upset in the family. So for me, an emotional upset in the family creates a massive impact on my nervous system. And I'm hyper aware of where each of the kids are and their needs and all those sorts of things, because it matters a lot to me. And
parenting's something that I didn't even mention then, but if you're not able to regulate your nervous system as a parent, you're in a bit of trouble.
Oh yeah, well, you're just going to repeat the same patterns, right? Because it's default at that point. And so, then if there is that disturbance in the force, the implications for business is huge. The implications for, am I going to go to the gym, or am I going to go, fuck it, I want to watch some Netflix? All of these sorts of things is a tail off of something impacting that emotional center that will then impact the nervous system. So, and I work with a lot of people who are early days in starting businesses. They're just kicking off, and it's really common for me to hear something along the lines of, oh my God, that scares the crap out of me. I don't know how to take that action.
Yeah.
And so the fear can be that thing that then you've got to overcome the fear before you can even get to the action, even though
Right.
the action is like this little itty bitty thing.
Absolutely. Literally had this conversation with like multiple clients this week. And it's very much about like, you're not actually like, so I work with a lot of people who have anxiety around public speaking. And so, I've been saying to people, it's not actually public speaking that you're worried about. It's how uncomfortable you are while you're doing it. And you don't want to be uncomfortable. And the reason you're uncomfortable is because you've had some bad experiences doing it or you're scared and right? A big part of being able to do things that you're scared of is learning how to even just be uncomfortable,
Mm.
and people, what I find is people have very little tolerance for discomfort.
Yeah. But it's funny though, because we're quite happy as a humanity, I think, with these low level gnawing pain. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Chronic,
but
background pain is
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
But a
chronic
kick in your
stuff.
face, holy
Exactly.
fuckballs, not so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Even though that's actually facing that is so much more beneficial
Oh,
because
huge.
it reduces the underlying stuff.
Yeah, it absolutely reduces the underlying stuff and it also builds self-trust,
Yeah.
right? Because yes, it's all well and good to learn how to manage yourself in a particular situation, but if you know that you can manage yourself in any situation, you
Yeah.
trust yourself, right? And when you trust yourself, your sense of competence increases, then your confidence increases, and
Mm.
you just become a more resilient, capable person. And that also does a bunch of other cool stuff like reducing your refractory period between like stress response and calm, right? Like the less willing you are to like just be in discomfort and have tolerance for comfort, the longer that refractory period is between being stressed or being dysregulated and becoming regulated again.
Yeah.
And your tolerance window is tiny, right? Actually, the more you allow yourself to feel uncomfortable, the more tolerance you build for it, which we actually know conceptually. Like everyone knows,
Yeah.
oh, exposure therapy, rah, rah, rah. But
Yeah.
actually,
Well, that makes
like,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like that's the thing,
Yeah.
if you can recalibrate your nervous system response just to discomfort, which
Mm.
sounds kind of weird. I think people conflate the two. They go, "Oh, discomfort is a nervous system response," but actually, discomfort is kind of like a thinking thing that you do in response to a nervous system
Hmm.
thing that happens to you.
Yeah.
If we can get better at anyone who can get better at tolerating discomfort, they increase their resilience, they improve their vagus nerve tone, they increase their general like ability to manage themselves.
Mm.
It changes everything, when we separate the idea of discomfort from either the task that we're doing or from like, oh, that means like says something about our nervous system capacity, right?
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
separate discomfort and look at it as an individual thing and just learn how to be with discomfort, everything else gets so much easier.
It's so interesting because you reminded me of there's a study, I think it was Heart Math that did it years ago now, and they were looking at the response of the body mind for emotional stimuli, and so they had people hooked up to all of the whatever's,
Mm.
and they were testing the heart and they were testing the mind in the response to images, randomized images of emotive imagery. That's
Yeah,
a good way
stuff.
of doing it. You get what I mean.
Yeah.
And what they realized was that not only would both the mind and the body react before the image was shown, but the heart would react first, and then the mind would respond.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
it's like the body actually receives the information first,
First.
and then the mind goes, "Let me tell you why you're feeling that way."
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So some research was done last year on the vagus nerve, right? They did it on a cadaver, right? So pulled the vagus nerve out, had a look at it, tested all of the directionality of the nerve, like the nerve fibers, and
Interesting.
between the heart and the brain along the vagus nerve, 80% of the fibers are afferent, which means they go heart to brain. I think that's afferent, and only 20% are efferent, brain to heart. So actually, right, your body is the driver. Your body is the main communicator, right? If you extrapolate from there, you've just got to assume that that's the same for everything that's happening in your body, right?
Yeah.
80% of the communication is body to brain, right? So if you want to manage responses do you go to the 20% driver or do you go to the 80% driver?
Yeah. Well, depends on how efficient you want to be, I guess.
Right. I am like all about efficiency. I'm like really, really impatient and I like shit to happen fast. So I'm like, let's go the 80%, right?
Yeah,
Like
totally. Yeah.
but it just works. It
Yeah.
works. And we live in a society, we live in a space that tells us our cognitive power is the most important thing. Our intellect is the most important thing. The way we think is the most important thing. And it's not. It's what we feel. And emotionally, yes, but also just physiologically.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge passion of mine as well. The body's so interesting. From a psychosomatic lens, you can literally read somebody's emotional tendencies through their physical form because the adaptations and everything are just written all over you. You know, it's
All over you.
so fascinating. And then with body work, one of the things that I love about it, you can't guarantee anything in body work. Well, the only thing you can guarantee is that there will be a transformation. What transformation? I don't fucking know, because your body's going to guide it.
Yeah. And you don't know what's trapped in there. You don't know what you're releasing.
An idea. But it's interesting how, and this is why I fell in love with the modality, is because you can go into somebody's tissues and work with the breath and allow for the emotions to flow and things like that. And by doing so, without any story whatsoever, you completely rewire the story.
Yes.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. And so
I love it.
to be able to, that's obviously somebody working on another person in that context. You can do elements by yourself, but it's definitely more powerful with the person working. However, what you're talking about is something that I also really love, which is I can take control of it in the moment based on my own awareness, based on my own experience, and I can start building the muscle of resilience and tolerance to these things to be able to ensure that I can express myself more honestly, with more integrity, and more power, essentially.
Yes. 100%.
So, which is so incredibly awesome. Like, I just love that so much. So what are the techniques or the tools that you have preference around? Because I know there are a lot out there, and I'm sure you've got your preferences.
Well, yes, sort of, right? Like it's really funny because I built a bunch of methodologies for myself in the absence of any kind of like formal education around it. Like I didn't go and study psychology. I've done a little bit of psychology study, but not much, right? I haven't done certifications and all of the bits and pieces, right? So it's really funny. I've built up a bunch of methodologies and stuff that I have used myself over time. And then as I've like started teaching this to other people, I'm like, oh, I wonder what else is out there, right? And I start looking, I'm like, oh, this has got a name. Someone's got a name for it. This is cool, right? So it turns out a lot of what I do has a huge amount to do with CBT, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, NLP kind of stuff.
Break those down for us for people who don't know what that means.
So cognitive behavioral therapy is about making adjustments to the way that you think about things so that you like behave differently, right? And so it's very much about, and I'm not a specialist in this, so feel free to like, if anyone listens to this and goes, that's not what it is, excellent, right? But my understanding of CBT is that it's about combining physical action with like thought processes and thought patterns, looking at how those two things are interacting and making adjustments to them, right? And then acceptance commitment therapy is really, really interesting because that's very much about identifying emotional states, accepting that they exist, right? And then shifting language around those things so that you're expressing yourself and the feelings in ways that stop stuff from getting trapped in your body and you get to move through things in a way, right?
There's normalizing and validating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And then there's also, so NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, right? And again, that's very much language-based. So it's really interesting, right? Because I am very much body-based in the sense that I really like to help people move through things using breath because it has an immediate impact on the physiology and tension release. So they're like my two favorite ways of working with people's bodies, breath and tension release, right?
Yep.
And then in terms of the kind of the top down stuff, I love looking at language. I adore language. I've been a big reader and a big like consumer of the written word, and I work with the written word. I speak. That's what I do for a living, right? I say words and stuff all of the time. So I really like combining the two. I like combining body first kind of processing, like options, you know, through like breath control. But it's really interesting, right? Because I don't like breath work. That sounds terrible. I don't dislike breath work. But what I find is when people use breath work in the way that it's like, okay, in for 4, out for 4, in for 4, out for 4, those kind of breathing patterns are really, really helpful if people are breathing properly.
Yes. Yep.
But what I find is most people don't breathe properly. People don't breathe properly, right? Yeah. So for me, the kind of language-based stuff, the, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy things, the language things, all of those bits, I like using those secondarily to getting people to breathe functionally and start to understand their tension patterns. And then I love building interoceptive intelligence.
And what does that mean?
So interoception is a sense of what's going on inside your body.
Beautiful. Yep.
Right? So the way I like explaining it to people is proprioception is your sense of where you are in the world. Right? So like if I put my hand behind my back, I still know where it is without me having to look at it. Right? Yeah. I know that my feet are under my desk currently on the floor. I can't see them, but I know where they are in space and I know what's around them because I've got a map in my head of what the space is like and I can feel where my feet are and I have enough ability to understand that. It's how we can like walk in the dark, for instance. Yeah. We know where our feet are going, right? So that's proprioception. Exteroception is the sensation of something on the outside of our body. So if you pinch your finger or you pinch your skin, and you feel pain, that's extrasensory perception, and it helps us know what's touching our body. You know when you walk into a spider web, you don't necessarily see the spider web, but you feel the spider web, right? That's extrasensory perception, right? Interosensory perception is your ability to sense what's happening inside your body. That could be emotional or it could be physiological. So if you can feel your heart beating, if you can just slow down and be quiet and feel your heart beating, that's an interoceptive sense. If you can feel an emotional response in your body, like if you get scared and you feel your insides tighten up, that's interoception.
Interesting.
Right? And a lot of people have very low interoceptive awareness.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A lot of people are completely disconnected from that.
Very disconnected from their body. So the first thing I do is talk to people about interoception and get them aware of what's happening in their body. The second thing I like to do with people is teach them how to breathe, right? And that means switching them from shoulder breathing and chest breathing into rib expansion breathing. I call it horizontal breathing.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is tricky.
Vertically.
I remember like I've done yogic breath, I guess, for a really long time.
Yeah.
But even doing that, for decades, like I was still belly breathing, but I was belly forward breathing.
Yeah.
And it was only in the last sort of maybe 5-10 years where I started focusing on breathing my ribs out.
Outwards.
I remember when I first started, it was like there was no movement.
Yeah, because you have to teach the muscles how to do their job.
Yeah.
If you've spent the whole of your life using your shoulder muscles to lift your rib cage up and down, which is what most people do, or engaging core muscles to push the belly out and flare the ribs forward, right? You're not actually using your intercostal muscles or any of the muscles around your back or the muscles in the upper part of your torso to help your rib cage open horizontally.
And then how does that impact the diaphragm? Because I know the diaphragm is so important in the breath as well. So if you're just like, let's look at it from the 3 different types of breathing, I guess. So if you're breathing shoulders and drawing up, how would that impact a person's diaphragm and why does it matter?
Yeah, so we want the diaphragm to flatten, right? And I'll come back to that in just a second, but that's important for as a frame of reference kind of thing. As a general rule, your diaphragm is like a dome and it sits up inside your rib cage, Okay, so when you breathe out and your ribs go down, your diaphragm sits up inside your rib cage. If you are breathing with your shoulders and you're lifting your rib cage up and down, there's no opportunity for your diaphragm to flatten. In order for it to flatten, your ribs have to move outwards because that helps move the diaphragm in that direction. There's also some muscle contraction that happens when you breathe in. If you're breathing functionally, when you breathe in, the diaphragm contracts and flattens. But the rib cage has to move outward to allow for the diaphragm to even move in that direction.
So does that mean then the belly breathing also, like if you're just breathing forward, you're also not fully engaging the diaphragm?
Correct.
Interesting.
Correct. The diaphragm's just not getting to move the way it needs to move. Now, if the diaphragm doesn't flatten and contract, there's no room for the lungs to expand into. Essentially, what happens when we breathe functionally is our rib cage moves outwards, our diaphragm contracts and flattens, and it creates like a bigger volume in the chest area, and there's a pressure differential, and the lungs expand to fill that space, right? And we breathe in. Okay. And when we do that with expanded lungs, we get really good gas transfer. All of the oxygen gets pulled in because it's interacting with all of the surface area of the inside of the lungs. Carbon dioxide comes out of the blood, and then we get to breathe that out afterwards. If we're only using the shoulders to lift our rib cage up and down, we're getting a little bit of like longer kind of. Sorry about that. Didn't realize my phone was not on silent. That's like a podcast sin. Oh my God. I have to buy a carton of beer or something.
We encourage humanness. It's okay.
Yeah, good. Well, you're getting it, right? There's humanness on display. So when we're moving our shoulders up and down, we're moving our rib cage up, and we're giving our lungs a little bit of space to open lengthwise, but not out. So we're really minimizing surface area that the air can touch that we're breathing in. So we're minimizing oxygen intake, and we're minimizing carbon dioxide release. Both of those things make us breathe faster.
So that's surely got to also circle back to the nervous system, because
100%.
If we don't have enough oxygen in the system, it's going to, or any form of enough of anything really, it's going to trigger, there's deficiency going on.
Breathe more.
We've got to get something going on, right?
Yeah. So we increase the heart rate, we increase the breathing rate, we try and get more blood moving around the system, try and get more air in, so it increases our, like, we breathe faster and harder, right? And we wind up in a kind of pattern, and that absolutely triggers a fight or flight response in our body.
And then the brain goes, don't worry, I'll tell you why you're freaking out. You're freaking out because you're not good enough, or because
or like that thing
you want to know.
Whatever. Because our brain's a pattern making machine, right? It needs to find the connection, and so it just points at something and goes, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's likely.
Right? It's your kids, it's your money, it's your house, it's this, it's that. And then that feeds in and in and in, and you've got a negative feedback loop, and it's nasty, right?
Yeah.
Ideally, what we're doing, and the same with, like you said, the belly, right? When we push the belly out, what we're doing is flaring the ribs forward, so we're getting a little bit, but that forward movement doesn't allow the diaphragm to move properly. What we really want is ribs that in a 360-degree kind of space move outwards. The best analogy that I have is visualize a baby breathing. All you see is the torso expand and contract, or a dog, an animal, a cat lying down, breathing. Their shoulders are not going up and down and up and down and up and down, right? The other problem here, other than the diaphragm being able to do its job appropriately, is that our shoulder muscles are not designed for lifting ribs. And we breathe 28,000 times a day. So if you're breathing in this shouldery, dysfunctional kind of way, you're putting an enormous amount of tension and pressure on muscles that are not meant for that. So they'll tighten up, they'll get overworked, and that immediately impacts the vagus nerve, because it tightens up your neck, tightens up your jaw, tightens up that whole region of your body. And before you know it, you're telling your vagus nerve that shit is hectic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting. So like, from a psychosomatic lens, like if we layer that over the top of it, if your shoulders are tight, it communicates that you're taking on more responsibility than is necessarily yours, right? Your neck is tight, which means my expression is now inhibited. My jaw is tight, which is my base chakra, right? Safety, security, it all goes out the window. So you can imagine how much simply not breathing correctly functionally
Mm-hmm.
impacts your ability to express authentically.
100%.
It's huge. I love
Huge.
that. You know, for someone who isn't a breathwork practitioner, you're pretty well knowledged
I
on it.
kind of am in a way a breathwork practitioner. Like I feel like I've been studying breathwork for like my whole life, right? But the reason I don't like calling it breathwork is one, I'm not a, official breathwork practitioner type
You
person,
get
right?
put into a little box.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But also I am very much, like I said, very much based in let's teach you how to use your body the way it's meant to work, right? Before
Yeah.
we start applying frameworks over the top of a poor foundation, how about we get the foundation right?
Yeah,
How
totally.
about we give you like a foundation that creates powerful nervous system management, creates powerful speaking, creates a powerful voice,
Mm.
right? Because if you have the ability to release tension from your jaw, from your tongue, from your neck, from your shoulders, you also release your ability to have dynamic range in your voice. You also increase your ability to be emotionally communicative through your tone, because tension in there just flattens everything out, makes you literally monotone. So all of those people out there that are like, oh, I'm monotone, I wish that I had more like range in my voice. The first thing you want to be addressing is your breath and your body.
Mm.
Right? This is why I start with breath and tension all the time. And it's fascinating because
Yeah.
if you teach someone how to breathe well and you teach them how to release useless tension from their system, like tension that's not serving them in this
Yeah.
moment, everything changes. And that sounds really cliche, but what happens is a whole bunch of barriers disappear. They just go away.
Mm.
Right? When someone's breathing well and their brain is happy because it's well oxygenated,
Mm.
and their nervous system and the rest of their nervous system is happy because it's not being like red alerted all of the time.
Mm.
What happens is there's a bunch of things that happen, but one of the first things that happens is executive function comes back,
Yeah.
full power. Right. And when you have your executive function available to you, all of your skills, all your resources, all your intelligence, all of your memories, all of your language skills, they're suddenly available and they weren't before.
Yeah, I think because I mean, you know, from a speaker's standpoint, I think one of the things that most people are afraid of, I've certainly had this, you know, play out in my life of like, what if I get up on stage and I forget all of the facts,
Yeah.
right? You know, and I'm trying to explain something and I just get lost, and my words get lost and they're not making sense, and then, you know, people are going to judge me and whatever the story. So to be able to open up functionality around that would be so powerful.
Oh, it's huge. It's enormous, right? Like it's one of my favorite things. I feel like I get to give people their brain back, their personality back, but really, like I said, it's really about giving people their trust back,
Yeah.
trust in themselves, you
And
know?
how does that, because I mentioned before we hit record around, you know, seeing some things that you had on your Insta around embodied presence.
Yeah.
So how does this all tie into the presence piece for you?
Well, if you, I think presence pretty much comes from being in your body, right? And it's so funny saying that because I'm like, oh, well, duh, if you're in your body, you're being present. But like, I don't know that people put those things together, right? Like, this is one of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of these things where it's like something that I have been practicing and talking about and doing for like 30 years. So it seems like a simple connection to make. But I think people think presence has to do with a bunch of external stuff, you know, like stand like this, look like this, use your voice this way, create this, like move around a stage this way or whatever, and you will have presence. Really, presence comes from being grounded and in your body, right? Being present in this particular moment. And the best way to be present in this particular moment is to be in your body and to be like not caught in thinking kind of space, right? The beauty of being present is if you're present, you connect with the people that are around you, whether it's from a stage or whether it's through a Zoom or any of those kinds of things, right? And that's actually what presence is, being connected to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
All of the flair and jazz hands in the world, if people aren't connecting with you, you don't have presence. You're just putting on a show.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think
I think,
dilute
yeah, go.
what you're doing so much as well. Like, you know, it dilute, I don't know if that's the right word, taints it. It
Yeah.
feels tainted, when you're with somebody and you can tell that they're not present, that they're not with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like, did you want to be somewhere else? Like it brings that element of ickiness to the interaction.
Yeah. And sometimes people can't help that, they're like
Yeah.
doing the thing that they think is the right thing to do to have the impact that they want to have.
Mm.
And it's actually, it's really funny. Masking is much easier than not. Like it's it's safe, it's easy, you're not vulnerable. It's just there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But true presence, you have to remove masks. That
Mm.
doesn't mean that you have no self-control. That doesn't mean that you don't still make decisions about how you express yourself and what you say and how you say it. But it comes from a place of authenticity, lines up with your values and who you are as a person. And it's got to have an element of openness and vulnerability in it, because that's what opens the path for connection, right? Like,
Yeah, and that's what we're
allowing,
desperately missing in a huge portion of
yeah.
society, I think.
And for me, like one of the easiest ways to access that is through breath and tension release and getting into your body and being embodied, right? And you want to talk about embodiment. It's such an interesting topic because it's a word that has just been thrown around so much, this whole idea of embodiment, right? And for me, embodiment is about feeling things and then acting from that, as opposed to creating an idea of what embodiment looks like and then going out and doing that.
Yeah, it's like this, it's like spirituality, if I can make the comparison, right?
Yeah, please do.
Because what I've seen in my experience with spirituality is that you have people who identify as spiritual and they identify as being spiritual based on, the crystals and the clothes and the language that they use. But then they are able to, it's like a surface level spirituality, right?
Yeah.
Because there's still a lot of judgment and projection and my spirituality is right over your spirituality, and it's like, well, is that true spirituality? I don't think so, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so either.
I think like everything is spiritual. So if you understand that, you understand that there is no comparison, there is no judgment, none of that can exist if you are in alignment, really. And I think embodiment is the same in the sense that you have this surface level projection of embodiment and then the reality of embodiment. And we, myself and my partner, we run somatic events. And a couple of years ago, I started noticing at the events that we were running, like we were doing them monthly at the time, we do them quarterly now because it's a lot. And when we were doing the monthly, we'd have the same people come back each month, which was amazing. Love that. Thank you so much. But what was happening was some of those people were having the same types of releases in the same types of ways. You could literally set your watch for it. It was like we got to this certain point, we're like, okay, the alien language is going to start coming out now. Okay, now they're going to start shaking. Okay, now they're going to, and it was so fascinating because I'm like, what an interesting way that the mind gets to bypass the actual healing. Yeah, the actual work, because it's like I'm showing up for the work. I'm being seen to be doing the work. I get to stroke my ego around being in the work, and yet I'm not actually in the work. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
So it's like that surface level. So yeah, it's so interesting. But I think it's a safety mechanism of the mind that it's going to try and do everything. So it's not like anybody's wrong in it, but it's just interesting to notice and then notice where you are yourself in it and where is the refinement piece if we're wanting to truly go there.
Yeah, it's been a really big thing for me because as a younger person, right, I was very bouncy, very like I'm still super energetic, right? And you could probably still look at me and consider me a bit bouncy, right? Like I get that I have a bouncy vibe, right? But when I was younger, I was always on. always happy, always bouncy, to the point where if I wasn't smiling, someone was like, "Oh, are you all right? Are you okay? What's the matter?" Right? And I realized at some point, I don't remember exactly when, but I realized that it was a facade, and it was stopping me from connecting with people, you know. And at some point, I think sometime in my 40s, probably lined up with the beginning of perimenopause, I'd say, right? Like very likely. That's been a fucking like burn away of everything that doesn't like need to be here anymore kind of process. But there was a point where I was just like, you know what, this thing that I'm doing, and you could consider it an embodiment of something, right? Like it was the embodiment of my protections and who I thought I needed to be, and it's what made people like me and made me seem like a fun person to be around. And I think I probably put a lot of my worth into being that all of the time.
Sounds like a very playful armor, to be fair.
Oh yeah, it was good. It was fine. Like there was nothing wrong with it. It didn't hurt anyone.
But it's still an armoring, right?
It still was an armoring, right? And really what I was embodying was not like the full expression of me as a human and my own values. I was embodying an idea of like how I thought that I would be best received if I showed up in the world, you know? And breaking that down was really interesting. It was pretty challenging. There was like a period of time where I was like, all right, well, today I'm going to embody my fucking grumpiness because that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
You know, and it just, what it did really was take me down a little bit of a path of getting much more familiar with what does it feel like in my body to be in this mood or have this experience or do it in front of people. You know, like not hide how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
What does that feel like and how does that show up? And I had to like kind of start again in some ways, you know, like just work out how to express myself in a way that was honest and true. And it's been a really, really cool process to do. It's improved my acting enormously, enormously. And I do this process with a lot of my clients now that I call embodiment mapping, where I get them to like sit in the way that they feel about something and work out where that lives in their body. What does that feel like? Where do they feel it? And what is it? What's the sensation? And really build these kind of like maps of this is what the embodiment of this experience is. And this is the embodiment of this experience. And when I feel like this is the embodiment of that, you know? And it's been really interesting. It's been a really interesting process to go through that.
I imagine it would also be a good qualifier for social interactions.
Say more about that.
Well, so what I found is because I would call myself a chronic people pleaser for many years. And
that's where my little happy little masky girl came from too.
Yeah. I had the badge. I won an award. But one of the things that I realized when I started doing a similar process to what you're talking about and started being in whatever I was in and allowing it to be without trying to mask it was that not everybody is okay with that. And not that I actually find that you project less if you do that, right? If you allow yourself to be in the emotion, there's less projection than if you mask. Way more projection.
Yeah, I would agree.
But even in that, it's like it makes people feel really uncomfortable if they're not comfortable with their own emotional experience. And so like even was it last week, I had a lovely pity party. I was feeling like it's all shit and nothing's going according to plan and it's not fair and like I'm unhappy with whatever. And so I went into that and allowed for it. I'm actually finding the more that I do it, the less control over it I have now. It's like whether you want to or not, you're going to experience it fully. Yeah. And I shared about it in a business community that I'm in. And it was really beautiful because it qualified for me, that community.
Got it. Yeah.
Because the way that they responded to me, it wasn't like, oh my God, she's not actually good at what she's doing because she's having a victim moment. You know, my focus professionally is in empowerment. But the idea that a professional empowerment person should never be in victim mode is insanity.
Insanity.
So, complete insanity. And I don't think that's empowered at all. But yeah, so it was interesting. So based on that, I'm like, okay, these are good people, and I know that I am able to safely be vulnerable and receive the validation, the support, and the reflections of, hey, have you looked at it this way? Listen to your language here. Do you know what I mean? Like those
100%.
are actually really, really helpful and important.
Yeah, I love that. I would agree with that entirely. My social structure, like in terms of how many people I hang out with and who I hang out with and what I do with my time. Can you hear my rooster in the background?
I did, yeah. I love roosters.
The people that I hang out with, the things that I do, the way I spend my time has actually changed enormously. The more honest I've been about my current state and how I show up for the world, the less people I spend time with, but the higher quality of the interactions with those people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And what I've also found is when I'm meeting new people, I do get to find out who they are and how they're going to respond to me very fucking fast.
Yeah.
Which actually makes for much cleaner entries into relationships with people, whatever the relationship is, you know? Because if I'm going in there as my happy jazz hands girl, I don't really know how they feel about me.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're really going to respond to the sharper parts of my personality, the blunt parts of my personality, and those are there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we all, I think, accidentally cross over one another's rules of things sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I find that for people who are more at ease with the fullness of a person's experience, is a lot more inclined to be able to have a hard conversation in those moments, as opposed to someone who's not okay with that. They're going to avoid that uncomfortable feeling for themselves and project and bail is most likely, you know. So which is just drama. Bleh.
Yeah, bleh. You're right. I agree. That's all I got to add to that. Bleh. Right.
Done my time. I've done my time.
I really like it too. I feel a lot better about myself. And it's really interesting. I am much more grounded. So I still have that like bouncy energy kind of thing going on because it's who I am, right? But I'm so much more grounded now that I am just letting myself be who I am.
Yeah, that's
right. And being, I really like what you said before about being an empowerment coach doesn't mean that I'm never a victim. Right? Because I think the fact that like the reason that you're able to be an empowerment coach is because you deeply understand the other end of the scale.
Oh, mate, me and my victim, we're friends.
You what? Say that again.
We're friends.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. You understand it intimately. You know that part of yourself. You are comfortable even going there and spending time as that version of yourself because it's a part of who you are. And it's like you can't have the light without the dark, just to do a really cliched kind of version of it, right? Like the reason I know how to manage my nervous system is because I'm regularly not in control of my nervous system and I have to be able to manage it to work things through, you know? And the reason I understand what it's like to be authentic and grounded and the real version of me is because I've spent a lot of time not being that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've made adjustments and I recognize when it's happening. Sometimes it sneaks up on me and I'm in it and I'm like, oh, I'm being perky, Deanna.
Yeah. Oh, here I am.
Right, here I am again. Here she is again. But that's always a sign that I've been triggered by something.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
always a sign that my nervous system has just been poked by something, some past version of me that's really insecure about something that's like popped up and said, hello, Deanna, that's a bad idea. Back away. Abort, right? That's that part of me letting me know that I'm stepping into dangerous territory. And now that I know that, it's one of my favorite things to do, like really try and catch those things super early and be aware of them, understand that that's what's happening, and then make the choice of like who am I embodying right now? Am I embodying that like 5-year-old version of me or that 12-year-old version of me that had that like thing happen to them? Or am I embodying the future version of me who is grounded and makes decisions from higher self and does all of these things, like who am I right now and how am I showing up and is it who I want to be?
Yeah. Yeah. Very powerful questions. Love that.
Yeah, me too.
So, to close out, I ask everybody the same sort of question. It's not always exactly the same, but it's the same sort of thing. Um, I'm really passionate about the importance of allowing oneself to be seen because I think, it's very much in alignment with the thread that we've been talking about today anyway. So we all go on our own individual journey in that though, of putting on all the masks and then figuring out at some stage that actually I need to take these off if I want what I want. And I would, there's an assumption, which I think is probably incorrect, that as somebody who's been on stage, been acting from a younger age, that you would have realized that and pulled those off sooner than a lot of other people. Do you find that to be true? Or like, what's your journey with that been? How have you allowed yourself to be seen?
Well, I think I've been more seen in the last 5 years than ever before, because when you're performing, you're not yourself, right? Like when I'm on stage, I'm not Deanna, right? When I'm in a show or something like that.
Yeah.
Even to a degree, things like emceeing and hosting events and that kind of stuff, it's still not completely me, right? And especially in the past, there was a persona. I definitely put on a persona. So starting a business and having to start to represent my business was really what forced me into being visible as myself. And that was hard work. I suspect that being an actor and learning how to be a performer and learning how to do all of those things actually probably kept me hidden for a really long time. It gave me a very convenient way to hide, and I'm really good at it because I'm highly trained.
Yeah.
Like people don't even know that I'm doing it because I'm a professional pretender, right? Like that's literally my job, So when I started my business, I couldn't keep doing that because nobody responds to, if I'm up there talking about my business and who I am and what I'm trying to do for people, and there's this veneer of, performance over it, or a veneer of something masky, people feel it.
Oh, yeah.
People know. And they go, oh, look, you look great. I like the vibe, but I'm not connected to it, right? And, stepping into coaching people was the same kind of thing, like coaching voiceover was a little bit different. Coaching people at executive level, coaching leaders, helping them become more themselves. I knew that if I was going to do that properly, I had to make sure that I was myself. And pulling away all of those tendencies to hide was fucking hard. It was challenging. It was fun. It's good. And it still happens, right? That whole new level, same devil kind of thing where like every time you level up, all your shit comes back and smacks you across the face. You're like, fuck, I thought you were gone, right?
I have to remember that. New level, same devil. Got it. It's a brilliant way of saying it.
Right? Like all your stuff comes back. So it's literally just been every time I level up, my protective mechanisms show up and my desire to hide shows up, and I look at it and I have conversations with those parts of me that are trying to protect me, and I reassure them and soothe them and make sure that they get what they need, And there are a few versions of myself as a child who, learnt that expressing emotions is like you don't get the support that you need when you express your emotions, or that if you ask for this thing you don't get it, so don't fucking ask, like just the normal things that happen to us as we're building our nervous system and building our psyche, right? Those parts of me do show up and they need conversation, they need support, they need acknowledgement. Sometimes they need to be told to shut up and sit in the back seat and just pipe down,
Yeah.
But it's a continual ongoing thing. And look, I'm 50, right? I just turned 51, okay? And I reckon I was a pretty hardcore, very high degree masker until probably 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So really, I've only been working on dismantling stuff for 6 years. And that's not very long compared to 45 years or whatever, you know, 40 years or whatever you want to call it, you know. Yeah. So they do keep coming back. Yep. All of those instincts.
They do.
Practiced kind of ways of being.
I find it's my client's least favorite conversation where they're like, Nerida, but like, I thought I worked on this. And I like, I'm a bit brutal sometimes because I giggle and I'm like, oh, honey, you're going to be working on that for the rest of your life.
Forever.
Like settle in, you know.
Yeah, that's what I say to people as well.
Settle in. It's not going anywhere.
I tell you what,
it's increasing the quality of our relationship to that thing.
To that thing, right? And also expecting it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's been
not
probably
making it wrong.
Yeah, not making it wrong, not shaming yourself for it being there, but also knowing, oh, I'm doing something hard. That's probably going to show up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That's been massive for me. Knowing, oh, that part of me is going to have something to say about this. So I might even have a conversation with that part of me first, right? Might do a little prep there. Or at the very least, I know that it's going to kick up and I know what it feels like in my body. I know what the embodiment of that reaction is. Yeah. I know what it's going to feel like and I'm ready for it to show up and I'm ready to regulate my nervous system. I'm ready to just keep breathing, stay in my body, stay present, know who I am trying to be, who I want to be in this, and just stay in that. Okay? And it's working, right? Like it's working personally, but it's also really working professionally. I signed my first enterprise client 6 months ago. I'm 3 months into working with them. It's fucking amazing. We're having the best time, right? Yeah. And they literally told me that they hired me because my communication was so authentic. They looked at me and several other communication service providers and they were like, they were really polished. You're professional, but very real. And that's what we want.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
more and more people, that's what we're looking for. Because if you want polished, go to ChatGPT.
Right? Or like there's lots of ways you can build polish. There's actually many people out there that will teach you to polish. There's heaps of people out there that will teach you to polish. But and polish is useful, but it has to be the end piece. And you need to be polishing yourself, not polishing some manufactured version of you that you built because you thought that was the way that it was supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, you know? We're told that's, you know, if you want to be successful, this is what it looks like. Right. This is what you're going to be like. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Amazing.
I feel like you and I could just keep talking forever.
I was just about to say that. I think that we could keep on chatting for a couple of hours. But we're probably going to have to put a pin in it. But look, I just want to say massive thank you so much for spending the time with us today and for sharing so authentically and for just being all of yourself. I really do appreciate that. I think you know, I have a feeling that this is where humanity's kind of being forced down the road of, you know.
I agree.
But it is nice to see those early adopters coming through. So
well, thank you for like creating a space where that's like encouraged and supported and, well, you know, expected really, right? Yeah. Because that's what you're doing here. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to just, you know, come in and see what happens. Like I said, it was scary, but it was fun, right?
Right. Amazing. Oh, before we finish out, how do people find you? How do people find you?
I'm all over social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, at Deanna Cooney. Just come find me. If you Google me, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff about voiceover. There's a website that is just voiceover. Feel free to have a look at it if you want to, but if what you want to talk to me about is communication, authenticity, nervous system management, any of that kind of stuff, social media is the best pathway to find me.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much again. And I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks so much.
Okay, that is it from us for today for the Enquiry podcast. All of the links that you're going to want to find is going to be underneath this episode. So jump along and make sure that you're following the people who do join us for the Enquiry podcast. I'm sure you'll agree they are absolutely phenomenal, and it is my absolute pleasure to be able to have them come in and share their wisdom with everybody. If you're wanting to know what I'm up to, jump onto my website, neridamills.com, and you can check out all of my opportunities to get involved, be they free things or programs or events. events, you can always come along and say hi. I would love to see you.